Every human life moves through three repeating phases: wanting more, having more, and losing something you thought defined you. And in every single phase, the same enemy appears. Not outside you, not in the critics, not in bad luck, not even in failure. It's inside you. It tells you you're special, that you deserve more, that you've already done enough. And just when you start believing it, that's when it starts destroying you. If you've ever felt secretly angry that the world hasn't noticed you yet, if you've ever thought, why don't they see how good I am? That's not ambition speaking. Have you ever felt like it's you against the world? The truth is, it's mostly you against yourself. Because this enemy doesn't just fight your critics, it fights your growth. It convinces you you're already there, already deserving, already invincible. And that's why it's so dangerous. Ego isn't confidence. It's an unhealthy attachment to who you think you are. It's choosing image over substance, applause over effort, the story in your head over the reality of your actions. On the way up, ego tells you that you already know enough, so you stop learning. In success, ego makes you comfortable, entitled, and blind to your weaknesses. And in failure, ego refuses humility, turning lessons into resentment and setbacks into excuses. Most people don't lose because they lack talent. They lose because ego cuts them off from reality. So this isn't a motivational pep talk. It's a survival guide. Because if you want to rise without self-sabotage, if you want to succeed without losing yourself, and if you want to fail without breaking, you need to recognize ego before it does what it always does. Destroy quietly. Part 1. Aspire, the psychology of the climb. At the beginning of every journey, ego doesn't look like a problem. It looks like excitement. It looks like ambition. It looks like finally believing in yourself. You have ideas, plans, a clear picture of who you could become. And ego loves this phase. Because before results exist, before discipline is tested, before reality pushes back, ego offers something much easier: the illusion of progress. Phase 1. The illusion of progress. You start talking. You talk about what you're going to build, what you're going to study, who you're becoming, what's coming next. And every time you say it out loud, something subtle happens. You feel accomplished. Your brain gives you the emotional reward before the work is done. But nothing has actually changed. No skills improved, no habits built, no effort repeated. Just words. This is where many people stall for years. Not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack opportunity, but because ego convinces them that expression is execution. Talking feels like movement, but it isn't. It's performance. And ego prefers performance over progress, because performance brings attention. Progress demands patience, so slowly the focus shifts. You stop asking, what should I practice? And start asking, how does this look? You stop doing the uncomfortable beginner work and start explaining your potential. You don't want to be good yet. You want to be seen as good. And that's where ego tightens its grip, because the moment you say, I am this, you feel pressure to defend it. Now, mistakes aren't just mistakes. They're threats. Feedback feels personal. Correction feels insulting. So instead of learning in silence, you perform in public. Instead of doing the work, you curate the image. This is the trap behind a simple question. Do you want to be something, or do you want to do what that thing requires? Ego wants the title. Reality wants the labor. Ego wants the identity. Reality demands repetition. And repetition is humbling. It exposes how little you know, how slow progress really is, how ordinary effort feels at first, which is why ego avoids it. Instead, ego invents an imaginary audience. You start thinking about how you look, how you sound, how you'll be judged. You replay conversations that haven't happened. You hesitate before starting. You overthink simple steps, not because people are watching you, but because ego thinks they are. Here's the truth most people never realize. Almost no one is paying attention, and that should be freeing. But ego turns it into fear. Fear of looking inexperienced, fear of being ordinary, fear of starting small. So you wait. You wait until conditions are perfect, until confidence arrives, until you feel ready. But readiness is a myth ego uses to delay effort, because real readiness is built through action, and action threatens ego, so aspiration quietly becomes stagnation. Ego doesn't stop you from starting. It convinces you you've already started. Phase 2. The student's choice. This is the first real fork in the road. The moment where growth requires a choice. Stay impressive or become a student. Because learning demands humility. It requires saying, I don't know. It requires asking questions. It requires repetition without applause. And ego hates all of that. Ego wants passion. Passion feels exciting. Passion feels intense. Passion feels meaningful. But passion alone doesn't build anything. It spikes motivation, then disappears the moment discomfort arrives. Discipline is quieter. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't care about mood or inspiration. It shows up anyway. And that's why discipline compounds while passion burns out. Ego prefers passion because passion makes you feel special. Discipline makes you feel ordinary. But ordinary effort, repeated daily, beats special feelings every time. This is why real growth often happens offstage, quietly, in support roles, behind the scenes. This is the canvas strategy. Instead of trying to be the main character, you attach yourself to the work. You help, you observe, you learn by proximity. You trade recognition for access, attention for understanding. Ego resists this because ego wants credit now. But mastery doesn't care about credit. It cares about time spent close to the craft. This phase feels invisible, unrewarding, slow. And that's exactly why it works. Because ego loses power in silence. The people who grow the fastest are the ones least concerned with being impressive. Phase 3, the trap of early wins. But there's another danger on the climb, one that appears the moment things start to work. A small win, a little praise, some validation, and suddenly ego speaks louder. You relax slightly, you listen less, you assume more, you start believing the early success says something permanent about you. But early success is fragile. It's not proof of mastery, it's just proof that something worked once. Ego turns that into a ceiling. You stop pushing, stop refining, stop repeating. Not because you're lazy, but because ego wants to protect the win. Restraint disappears. Shortcuts look tempting. Effort feels optional. Discomfort feels unnecessary. And growth slows. This is why many people peak early. Not because they can't grow, but because they stop doing the boring work that got them there. They confuse momentum with permanence. But nothing lasts without maintenance. Confidence without repetition is just arrogance waiting to be exposed. Phase 4, the antidote, which brings us to the only real antidote, the one thing ego can't survive. Work, not dramatic work, not heroic bursts of effort, just consistent, unglamorous repetition. Work that doesn't care who you think you are, work that exposes gaps, work that humbles you daily. The work keeps you honest. Because ego lives in your thoughts. The work lives in reality. The work doesn't care about your intentions, it only responds to your actions. And every time you show up, fantasy loses power. That's why the climb belongs to those willing to look ordinary for a long time, to practice without praise, to improve without announcing it, to work without needing validation, because aspiration doesn't fail from lack of desire. It fails when ego convinces you that desire alone should be enough. And if you survive this phase, if you keep working without letting ego take control, you might reach success. But that's where the real test begins. Because ego doesn't disappear, it evolves, and in success, it becomes quieter and far more dangerous. Part 2, success. The psychology of having more. Surviving the climb doesn't defeat ego. It transforms it, because once success arrives, ego doesn't shout anymore. It whispers, it hides inside praise, inside recognition, inside the story you start telling yourself about how you got here. And that's what makes ego far more dangerous in success than in struggle. When you're struggling, ego is loud and obvious. When you're succeeding, ego becomes subtle, reasonable, convincing. It tells you this happened because you're special, because you finally proved something, because you deserve what you have now. And if you're not careful, success becomes the moment growth quietly stops. Phase 1, staying a student. Success creates a sense of arrival. You've proven yourself, you've achieved something, you survived the climb, and ego steps in and says, you've made it. But here's the trap. The moment you believe you've arrived, you stop learning. Praise feels safe. It feels like stability. It feels like confirmation. But stability without growth is just stagnation that hasn't revealed itself yet. This is why praise is more dangerous than criticism. Criticism forces reflection. Praise invites comfort. Ryan Holiday puts it simply, your biggest test isn't struggle, it's praise. Because praise makes ego rewrite the past. It whispers, I always knew this would happen. I was destined for this. This proves who I really am. Slowly a myth forms. You stop seeing success as the result of effort, timing, and learning, and start seeing it as proof of identity. Feedback begins to feel unnecessary. Correction feels beneath you. Curiosity fades. You stop asking questions. And that's where decline begins. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. Most collapses don't start with failure. They start with success that stopped learning. History is full of people who confused early success with permanent ability. Think of Howard Hughes. His early oil fortune convinced him he could succeed at anything: aviation, filmmaking, engineering, finance. And for a while, it worked. But ego slowly blocked feedback. It rewrote his story. It resisted correction. And eventually, reality caught up. His empire didn't collapse overnight. It decayed under arrogance, isolation, and paranoia. Not because he lacked intelligence, but because success convinced him he no longer needed to learn. So ask yourself, honestly, where in your life have you stopped being a student because you believe you already know enough? Because the moment learning stops, success begins to expire. Phase 2. Values versus validation. Success doesn't just bring results. It brings noise, interviews, awards, invitations, applause, attention, and ego loves noise. Because ego thrives when you mistake attention for meaning. You start confusing applause with purpose, recognition with value, visibility with impact. You feel important, but not necessarily fulfilled. Slowly, something shifts. Entitlement creeps in. I deserve this. I've earned the right to relax. People should listen to me now. Control follows. You want to decide everything. You trust fewer people. You micromanage what once flowed naturally. And then paranoia appears. They're trying to take what's mine. They don't appreciate me. They're against me. Success starts to feel anxious instead of satisfying. You're no longer grounded in values. You're chasing validation. This is how ego turns success into pressure. You're protecting a position instead of pursuing meaning. History shows this pattern again and again. Empires collapse not when leaders lack power, but when power replaces principle, when validation replaces values. Ask yourself, am I living by what matters to me? Or am I just reacting to applause? Because when values fade, ego takes control, and success becomes fragile. Phase 3. Managing the self. After success, leadership turns inward, because the hardest person to lead after success is yourself. Before success, discipline is external: deadlines, pressure, consequences. After success, discipline becomes internal. No one forces you anymore. And ego hates self-management. Ego wants domination. Reality demands discipline. Ego wants authority. Reality demands self-awareness. This is where what Pat Riley called the disease of me appears. The belief that everything revolves around you, that your success proves you're always right, that others should adapt to you. At first, it's subtle. You interrupt more. You listen less. You dismiss concerns. But slowly, collaboration collapses. Teams fracture. Partnerships weaken. Trust erodes. Not through conflict, but through ego. Because ego recenters the universe around itself. Ryan Holiday reminds us of something uncomfortable. Success doesn't destroy ego loudly. It rots it quietly. Through relationships, through tone, through entitlement. The danger isn't that you become arrogant. The danger is that you become unaware. So pause and ask, am I managing my ego, or is my ego managing me? Because after success, the biggest threat isn't the world. It's what success does to your self-control. Phase 4. Perspective and sobriety. There is medicine for ego in success, and it starts with perspective. Meditate on the immensity. Time is bigger than you. History is bigger than you. The world is bigger than your wins. No achievement escapes time. Even the most powerful empires dissolve. Even the loudest names fade. Perspective shrinks ego back to human size. And the second medicine is sobriety. Don't get high on praise. Don't let recognition intoxicate you. Because intoxicated people make reckless decisions. Success is temporary. Process is permanent. Muhammad Ali once joked, It's hard to be humble when you're as great as I am. But humility is rarer than talent, and without it, greatness collapses under its own weight. Sobriety means staying grounded. It means returning to the work, to learning, to repetition. It means remembering that today's applause doesn't guarantee tomorrow's relevance. Eventually, life humbles everyone. The only question is how you respond. Do you resist it, or do you learn from it? Ask yourself, what perspective keeps me grounded when success tries to inflate me? Because perspective doesn't shrink ambition, it protects it. Success doesn't defeat ego, it amplifies it. And without humility, perspective, and discipline, success becomes the fastest path to collapse. But even if you resist ego in success, life will still deliver setbacks. And in failure, ego shows up again, this time disguised as bitterness, denial, and blame. Part 3. Failure, the psychology of losing something. But even if you survive the climb, and even if you resist ego in success, life will still take something from you. A job, a reputation, a relationship, a dream you thought was permanent. And in failure, ego appears again. But this time, it doesn't look like confidence. It doesn't look like ambition. It looks like bitterness. It looks like blame. It looks like denial. Failure is where ego is finally cornered. It can no longer pretend. It can no longer perform. It can no longer hide behind potential or praise. It can only do one of three things: blame, harden, or surrender. And the question that defines this phase is simple. When everything falls apart, does ego destroy you, or does humility rebuild you? Phase 1. Alive time versus dead time. Failure creates stillness, a silence you didn't choose, a pause you can't skip. Ego hates this phase because there's no audience, no applause, no story to tell. When identity collapses, when the job is gone, the momentum disappears, the future feels uncertain, ego panics. Some people freeze, some numb themselves, some blame everyone else, some just wait, hoping life will fix itself. This is dead time. Dead time isn't dramatic. It's quiet stagnation, endless scrolling, endless complaining, endless replaying of what should have happened. Alive time is different. Alive time is choosing to use adversity instead of wasting it. It's reflection instead of resentment, rebuilding instead of retreating. History gives us a powerful example. When Malcolm X went to prison, he lost everything: freedom, status, identity. By every external measure, he had failed. But instead of wasting those years, he turned them into a lifetime. He read obsessively. He studied history and philosophy. He copied entire dictionaries by hand. Prison didn't define him. How he used prison did. Failure didn't end his life. It reshaped it. And this is the uncomfortable truth. Failure doesn't define you. How you use failure does. When life forces me to stop, do I waste that time or do I use it? Most people don't fail because they're broken. They fail because they wait. Phase 2. The effort is enough. Ego ties your worth to outcomes. So when you fail, ego whispers something dangerous. This happened to you. Therefore, this is who you are. But that's a lie. Results disappear, titles vanish, praise goes silent, and ego panics because without outcomes, it has no proof left. But effort remains. Effort is always yours. Reality doesn't judge you by applause. It judges you by what you did when no one was watching. Athletes understand this better than most. Championships aren't built under stadium lights. They're built in empty gyms, in lonely practice sessions, in repetition without recognition. Effort without applause is still progress. This phase should feel relieving. Because once you stop demanding that life validate you, failure loses its weight. You don't need to win today. You need to show up today. That's enough. Am I measuring myself by outcomes or by effort? Effort without applause is still progress. Phase 3. Necessary pain. Pain is unavoidable. Ego hates this truth. Ego avoids pain at all costs, and by doing so, it makes pain last longer. Failure exposes everything ego wants hidden: weakness, fear, insecurity. So ego tries to escape: distraction, anger, denial, numbing. But pain is often not the punishment. It's the doorway. Think of Fight Club. When everything superficial is stripped away, status, comfort, identity, what's left is truth. The illusion collapses and authenticity begins. Failure creates moments like that, moments that can break you or reshape you. But only if ego doesn't block the lesson. Avoiding pain doesn't protect you. It delays your growth. What pain am I avoiding that might actually be my doorway to transformation? Avoiding pain doesn't prevent suffering, it prolongs it. Phase 4. Draw the line and keep your own score. Failure tempts ego to point outward. It was them. It was unfair. I got unlucky. But growth demands something harder. Responsibility. Drawing the line means deciding what is yours to own and what isn't. Not everything is your fault, but everything that comes next is your responsibility. This is where the scorecard changes. External approval is gone. Good. Now you're free. Free to measure yourself by internal standards. Effort, integrity, consistency, restraint. Bill Bradley, the basketball player and senator, lived by a simple rule. If you're not practicing, someone else is. And when you meet them, they will win. His scoreboard wasn't applause, it was preparation. Failure loses power when you stop chasing validation. Whose scoreboard am I playing on, mine or theirs? When you stop chasing approval, failure loses its power. Phase 5, the final antidote. Love ego isolates. Failure can make people bitter, cold, closed off. Love does the opposite. Love reconnects. Not love as emotion, love as orientation. Love for the craft, not the outcome. Love for people, not status. Love for the process, even when it hurts. This isn't weakness, it's strength without ego. Ego hardens you. Love keeps you human. Failure doesn't need rage. It needs compassion, especially for yourself, because bitterness traps you in the past. Love lets you move forward. Where can I choose love instead of ego, even in loss? Ego hardens you. Love keeps you human. The quiet advantage. Ego doesn't disappear. It waits. It waits for ambition. It waits for success. It waits for failure. And every time life shifts, ego asks the same question. How can I make this about me? But now you know better. You know that progress comes from response, not reaction. From process, not image. From contribution, not comparison. Aspire, succeed, fail. The cycle will repeat. The advantage isn't avoiding ego, it's recognizing it early. And for everything that comes next, ego is the enemy, but awareness is the edge. Listening is good, but action is better. As we wrap up, here are the 3 most actionable ideas. 1, focus on process, not identity. This is the root fix. Ego lives in identity. Growth lives in process. If this changes, everything else follows. Every day, replace who am I becoming with what am I practicing today? Pick one small action. Do it quietly. No announcement, no performance. If you control the process, ego loses control of the story. 2, replace ego reactions with one loving action. This is the fastest ego breaker. It works in real time, during conflict, failure, and criticism. When emotion spikes, pause for 5 seconds and ask, what's the most useful response right now? Then take one calm, constructive action instead of reacting. You don't need to feel loving. You just need to respond responsibly. 3, love the craft more than the outcome. This protects you in success and failure. Outcomes fluctuate. Love for the craft stabilizes you. Commit 15 minutes a day to your craft. No tracking, no metrics, no audience. If you can keep working without recognition, ego has nothing to hold on to. Which idea resonated most with you? Drop it in the comments below. If this gave you something to think about, hit like and subscribe. Choose your next step. See you in the next video.